I'm looking at the cover of Forbes right now. Alex is smiling that smile, the one that looks like he just invented electricity or fire or maybe God himself. The headline reads, "The Sole Architect, How One Man Built a Billion-Dollar Empire from Nothing." It's a great photo. The lighting is perfect. It hides the fact that he hasn't written a line of code since 2017. It hides the fact that his vision was usually just a manic scribble on a napkin that I had to turn into a patentable reality. But mostly, it hides me. I'm Mira. To the new hires, I'm the quiet woman in legal who sends emails about compliance training. To the board, I'm a line item. But to that man grinning on the magazine rack, I'm the person who owns 49% of the company he's trying to sell out from under me. He thinks I'm a ghost. Thinks because I don't tweet, I don't exist. He's about to find out that ghosts haunt houses, but lawyers foreclose on them. Before I get into how I dismantled a billion-dollar IPO with a single red folder, you need to understand the architecture of the lie. This isn't a story about a messy breakup. It's a story about a breach of contract. And if you're into watching corporate arrogance get surgically removed without anesthesia, you might want to stick around. Also, if you enjoy seeing tech bros get what's coming to them, hit subscribe and drop a like. It helps the algorithm almost as much as Alex thinks he helps the world. Thanks, guys. Let's rewind 6 years. We weren't in a glass-walled office in Palo Alto back then. We were in a studio apartment in San Jose that smelled like mildew and stale Red Bull. Alex was the charisma. It was the guy who could walk into a room of skeptical venture capitalists and sell them sand in a desert. He had the energy of a golden retriever with an MBA. I was the skepticism. I was the one who read the fine print, the one who understood that a revolutionary idea is worthless if you don't own the IP. I remember the night we drafted the Origin Pact. It wasn't on a napkin. I don't do napkins. It was on my beat-up MacBook Pro, sitting on a mattress on the floor because we'd sold the bed frame to pay for server costs. "We need a clean split," Alex had said, pacing the room. He was wearing the same hoodie he'd worn for 3 days. Investors get spooked by co-founders who are dating, Mira. They see it as a liability. If we break up, the company breaks up. That's the narrative. So change the narrative, I said, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wasn't emotional about it. I've never been the type to cry over logistics. I view relationships, business and personal, as a series of agreements. You be the face, I'll be the structure. You take the meetings, the press, the glory. I'll take the paperwork, the patents, the back end. You're okay with that? He stopped pacing and looked at me. His eyes were wide, blue, and seemingly sincere. You're okay being invisible? I don't need to be seen, Alex. I need to be secure. So I wrote it, the founder's agreement. It wasn't a generic template downloaded from LegalZoom. It was a masterpiece of defensive legal engineering. I structured it so that, while Alex held the voting rights for the day-to-day operations, allowing him to strut around like the king of the castle, my equity was tied to the intellectual property itself. Here is the specific clause, Clause 14b, that he didn't bother to read closely because he was too busy dreaming about his future TED talk. In the event of dilution, restructuring, or sale, the Class B equity held by the silent partner Mira retains veto power over the transfer of core intellectual property assets, regardless of current employment status. Basically, he could run the company. He could fire people. He could pick the color of the logo. But he couldn't sell the engine without the mechanic's key. And I held the key. "Sign it," I told him, handing him the printed copy. The printer was low on toner, so his signature came out a little faint, a faded promise. "You really don't trust anyone, do you?" He laughed, scratching his name across the bottom. "I trust paper," I said. "Paper doesn't forget." For the next 5 years, the arrangement worked. We were a machine. Alex was the lone genius the Valley loved to worship. He was on podcasts, he was on panels, he was mingling with Musk and Zuckerberg. I was in the background, filing patents under the company name, structuring our tax liabilities, ensuring that every piece of code and every algorithm was bulletproof. We grew, God, we grew fast. We went from that studio apartment to a Series A, then a Series B. We hired 100 people, then 500. The money started pouring in. Alex bought a Tesla, and he bought a house in the hills. I bought a nice condo and put the rest in index funds. I didn't change my lifestyle much. I liked the work. I liked the quiet power of knowing that while Alex was the one shouting from the mountaintop, I was the one who built the mountain. But success acts like a solvent on relationships. It dissolves the glue that holds people together. The late nights working together turned into late nights working apart. He was at dinners. I was at the office. He was networking in Aspen. I was auditing our cloud, spending in a windowless room. I started to notice the shift in his language first. It was subtle. In the beginning, it was always we. We crushed that quarter. We need to hire more engineers. By year 4, though we had evaporated, it was I think the market is shifting. I decided to pivot the product roadmap. I didn't say anything. I let his ego inflate. I thought it was just the cost of doing business. I thought we were still partners where it counted on paper. I thought the Origin Pact was sacred. I was naive. For a smart woman, I was incredibly stupid. I assumed that because I had the legal leverage, I didn't need to play the social game. I assumed that gratitude was a renewable resource. It isn't. Gratitude has a half-life, and Alex's was decaying rapidly. Cracks didn't show until the incident with the initial investors. We were closing a massive round of funding, $50 million. The lead investor, a shark named Marcus who I actually respected because he was as cold-blooded as I was, asked for a breakdown of the cap table, the ownership structure. I prepared the document. It clearly showed Alex 51%, Mira 49%. 2 hours before the meeting, Alex came into my office. He closed the door. Didn't sit down. Mira, he said, adjusting his $500 designer glasses. We need to talk about the cap table. What about it? I asked, not looking up from my dual monitors. It looks complicated for Marcus. It's not complicated, it's math. I own half the company. You own half plus the voting rights. Right, he waved his hand dismissively. But the optics, it makes it look like I'm not fully in control. Marcus invests in founders. Mira, singular, the lone wolf myth. It's what gets the valuation up. So what are you suggesting? I finally looked at him. Let's just hide your column for this presentation. We'll list it under reserved equity pool or something. Just for the pitch, we can fix it later. My stomach tightened. In the legal world, hiding columns is a polite way of saying fraud, but I looked at him. This was the man I had built everything with, the man I had shared a mattress on the floor with. He looked stressed, he looked desperate to close this deal. Fine, I said, my voice flat, but I want a side letter acknowledging the discrepancy, signed by you, dated today. He rolled his eyes, always the lawyer. Fine, he signed the side letter. I hid the column. We got the money. That was the first compromise, the first brick removed from the foundation. I didn't know it then, but I had just given him permission to erase me. I thought I was protecting the company. In reality, I was handing him the eraser. He walked out of that meeting beaming, high on the adrenaline of a closed deal. He hugged me in the hallway, a quick one-armed squeeze that felt more like a football coach congratulating a water boy than a partner hugging a co-founder. We did it, he whispered. Then he corrected himself. I did it. He didn't think I heard him, but I hear everything. That night, I went home and pulled out the original hard copy of the founder's agreement from my fireproof safe. I sat on my floor, drinking a glass of lukewarm water, and read it again. Clause 14b. It stared back at me. In the event of dilution, I traced the words with my finger. I didn't know why I felt so uneasy. We had the money, we were successful, but something in the air had shifted. The smell of ozone before a lightning strike. I put the document back in the safe. Locked it, then I did something I hadn't done in years. I backed up my entire email history to an external hard drive, every thread, every attachment, every love you, thanks for saving my ass text message from 2018. I didn't know why I was doing it. Call it instinct. Call it paranoia. Call it the subconscious realization that the man on the magazine cover was no longer the man I knew. The erasure had begun, and I was the only one who could see it happening. The romantic breakup happened 3 months after the funding round, and honestly, it was less dramatic than canceling a gym membership. There were no throwing plates, no screaming matches. Just a quiet dinner at a sushi place where the lighting was too dim and the fish was too expensive. I think we've grown apart, Alex said, poking at a piece of yellowtail with his chopsticks. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was looking over my shoulder, probably checking his reflection in the window or scanning the room for someone more important than me. We work together 18 hours a day, I replied, sipping my tea. How much closer can we get? That's the problem, Mira. It's too much, I feel. Stifled, I need space to breathe. To expand. To expand, I repeated. It was such a VC buzzword to use in a relationship conversation. I half expected him to show me a slide deck on why our romantic ROI was plummeting. Yeah, space. I think we should end the personal side of things. Just focus on the mission, I agreed. Truthfully, I was tired too. Tired of being the grounding wire for his unlimited voltage. Tired of managing his moods, his anxieties, his sudden shifts in direction. A clean break personally seemed logical. We were professionals, we could handle it. But Alex didn't want a clean break. He wanted a clean slate. The week after he moved his stuff out of my condo, the blur began. It started with the calendar invites. The Monday morning all-hands meeting, the one I had run for 4 years, suddenly disappeared from my Outlook. I walked over to his office. His assistant, a 22-year-old named Chloe who looked at Alex like he was a K-pop idol, tried to stop me. He's in a strategy session, Mira. He said no interruptions. I'm a co-founder, Chloe. I don't interrupt. I convene. I open the glass door. Alex was sitting at the head of the table, surrounded by the new VPs we had just hired, VP of Marketing, VP of Product, VP of Vibes, I'm not kidding. They all fell silent when I walked in. On the whiteboard, there was an organizational chart. My name wasn't on it. Mira. Alex stood up, his smile tight, plastered on like a sticker. Just brainstorming, high-level stuff. Didn't want to bore you with the blue sky thinking. I know you hate the fluff. I don't hate fluff, Alex. I hate being excluded from decisions that affect my equity. You're not excluded, he laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. You're just insulated. Look, we just broke up. It's awkward for the team. I thought you'd want some time, some distance. To heal, to heal. He was weaponizing our breakup to push me out of the boardroom. He was framing my exclusion as an act of mercy. It was brilliant in a sociopathic kind of way. I don't need to heal, Alex. I need to work. Why is my name missing from the org chart? He walked over to me, lowering his voice, putting a hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy, patronizing. It's just a draft, Mira. Just optics for the new hires. They get confused with two bosses. We need a clear chain of command. You're still? You're the legal eagle, the brain. Nothing changes on paper. Nothing changes on paper, I echoed. Exactly. Go take a personal day. Get a massage. You look tired. I didn't take a massage. I went back to my desk and logged into the admin console. That's when I saw it. My permissions had been altered. I used to have super admin status on everything: Jira, Slack, the codebase repositories. Now, I was read only on half the channels. I tried to access the executive strategy Slack channel. Access denied. I tried to pull the latest financial projections from the shared drive. Request permission from owner. The owner was Alex. I sat there, the glow of the monitor washing over my face, feeling a coldness spread through my chest. This wasn't an oversight, this was a siege. He was systematically cutting the lines of communication, bricking me up inside my own castle. I could have stormed back into his office. I could have made a scene. I could have screamed until the glass walls shook. That's what he wanted. He wanted me to be the crazy ex-girlfriend. He wanted to paint me as unstable, emotional, unfit to lead. If I screamed, I validated his narrative, so I did the opposite. I went silent. I accepted the read-only status. I stopped showing up to the meetings I wasn't invited to. I stopped correcting his lies in the group chats. To the outside observer, it looked like I was checking out, like I was a scorned woman retreating to lick her wounds. But in reality, I was digging in. I started a new document on my personal laptop. Title: Breach Log. Date: October 14th. Event: removed from executive Slack. Evidence: screenshot attached. Date: October 20th. Event: denied access to Q3 financials. Evidence: email chain with CFO. Date: November 2nd. Event: Alex credits himself as sole inventor of the core algorithm in TechCrunch interview. Evidence: audio file and transcript. I became a ghost in the hallways. I'd walk past the new hires and they wouldn't even make eye contact. They didn't know who I was. To them, I was just some legacy employee from the early days who hadn't been fired yet. Just legal. One afternoon, I was in the break room making coffee. Two junior developers were standing by the espresso machine, talking loudly. "Did you see Alex's tweet?" one asked, talking about how he coded the first version of the platform in a cave with no Wi-Fi. "The guy is a beast." "Legend," the other agreed. "I heard the original co-founder couldn't hack it. Some girl he dated, apparently she just did the filing and tried to claim half the credit." I stirred my coffee. The spoon clinked against the ceramic mug. A sharp, clear sound. "Actually," I said, turning to them. They jumped. "I didn't do the filing. I wrote the patent that ensures you have a job, and Alex didn't code in a cave. He coded in my living room and he quit 3 times because he couldn't figure out the API integration. I had to fix it while he played FIFA." They stared at me, eyes wide, mouths open. "Enjoy the coffee," I said and walked out. I was shaking, not from fear but from rage. It wasn't just the money anymore. It was the history. He was rewriting the past, pixel by pixel, until I was nothing but a smudge on the lens. I went back to my office and closed the door. I pulled up the founder's agreement again. I looked at the restructure clause. If he wanted to play optics, fine. I'd play law. I realized then that I couldn't just wait for him to slip up. I had to let him think he had won. I had to let him feel so safe, so untouchable, that he would make the one mistake that is fatal to all narcissists: arrogance. He thought he was burying me, but he forgot that I'm a seed, and seeds grow best in the dirt. December came with a chill that the California sun couldn't touch. The office was buzzing with holiday energy, but for me, it felt like walking through a wake. The restructure memo hit my inbox at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. Coward's timing. Subject: organizational alignment and future equity, incentives from Alex, CEO. 2. Mira. Per our discussions regarding your desire for a reduced role to focus on personal well-being, we are transitioning your title from co-founder and chief legal officer to founding advisor. This aligns better with your current bandwidth. Your 49% equity stake will be recategorized as non-voting advisory shares to streamline our cap table for upcoming growth rounds. Please sign the attached acknowledgement. I stared at the screen. Per our discussions regarding your desire. We had never discussed this. He was hallucinating a reality and asking me to sign off on it. And recategorizing my shares? That wasn't a thing. You can't just change the DNA of stock because it's inconvenient. Didn't sign it. Instead, I printed it out and added it to the breach log. Then came the bonus meeting. Every year since the garage days, we took a $100,000 performance bonus if we hit our targets. We had crushed our targets this year. Revenue was up 300%. Alex called me into his office. He wasn't alone. The new CFO, a guy named Brad who wore fleece vests and used the word synergy unironically, was there too. Mira. Alex smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Great year, really. We appreciate everything you've done to maintain the filing cabinets." Brad chuckled. "I didn't. We're making a strategic decision to reinvest all executive bonuses back into the company this year," Alex said, leaning back in his air-own chair. "Runway is king, right? We want to show the board we're lean." So no cash bonuses for C-suite. I assume this applies to you too, Alex, I asked. Of course. He said smoothly, I'm taking zero. We're in this together. 2 weeks later, I would find the expense report where he reimbursed himself $120,000 for travel and representation, including a week in the Maldives, but I didn't know that yet. However, Alex continued, we want to celebrate the team. So instead of the cash, we're throwing a massive end-of-year bash, a real culture builder. The massive bash happened 3 days later. It was in the break room. He had ordered 20 Domino's pizzas, pepperoni and cheese. The boxes were stacked on the ping-pong table, grease staining the cardboard. There were coolers of Bud Light and lukewarm La Croix. Listen up, everyone, Alex shouted, standing on a chair, holding a slice of pizza in one hand and a beer in the other. The entire company, 200 people, gathered around. They looked tired. They had been working 80-hour weeks for the promise of equity that was slowly being diluted. This year was a rocket ship, Alex yelled, and it's all thanks to me. He paused for effect. A few people laughed nervously. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. It's thanks to you guys, the rock stars, the ninjas. He went on for 10 minutes praising the sales team, the dev team, the marketing team. He didn't mention legal. He didn't mention me. Then came the punchline. And hey, I know some of you were hoping for bonuses, Alex said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Let me tell you a secret. Cash is trash. Equity is freedom. Founders know that. That's why Mira and I gave up our bonuses this year to buy you. Pizza, he gestured to the greasy stacks. Because next year we save even more. Founders eat free, baby. The room erupted in applause. They cheered him. They cheered the man who had stolen their bonuses and bought them $5 pizzas. I stood in the back, leaning against the wall. I was wearing a black dress, holding a paper cup of warm, sparkling water. I watched him bask in the adoration. He looked over the crowd and locked eyes with me. He winked, a smug, triumphant wink. See, it said, I own them. I own the narrative. You are nothing. That wink was a mistake. Something inside me snapped, not with a bang, but with a click like a lock engaging. I looked at the pizza. I looked at the cheering sycophants. I looked at Alex, the false god of the open plan office. You want to play Founders Eat Free? I thought, okay, let's see who starves first. I put my cup down in the trash. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I walked out of the break room, down the hall, and into the server room. I wasn't an engineer, but I had the keys. I needed to check one thing. I logged into the master repo using a backdoor admin account I had set up 3 years ago for emergency redundancy. Alex had removed my main account, but he had forgotten about the emergency protocol. He was sloppy. He always focused on the UI, never the backend. I was still in. I navigated to the legal folders hidden deep within the drive structure, the ones only the founders were supposed to see. I found the folder labeled IPO prep. I opened it. There were drafts of the S1 filing. I scanned them quickly. Founder, Alex last name. Ownership, 100%. He had done it. He had actually put it in writing. He was preparing to file for an IPO claiming 100% ownership. He was going to sell the company to the public, and he was going to leave me with nothing but advisory shares and pizza. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a butcher sharpening a knife. If he had kept me at 49%, he could have been a billionaire. He could have had it all. But he had to have the credit. He had to be the sole architect. He had just committed securities fraud, and he had done it on a server I had access to. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket. I copied the folder. Then I walked out of the building. The cool California night air hit my face. I took a deep breath. It smelled like exhaust and jasmine. I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 2 years. Hello? A voice answered. It was gritty, tired. Simon, I said, it's Mira. I need a contract lawyer, not a nice one. I need a wartime consigliere. Mira, I haven't heard from you since the Series A. Is everything okay? No, Simon. Everything is perfect. I'm about to burn a unicorn. Simon introduced me to a man named Elias. Elias didn't have a glass office. He worked out of a brownstone in San Francisco that smelled like old leather and pipe tobacco. He was 70 years old, wore suspenders, and had eyes that looked like they had seen every variety of human greed and found it boring. So, Elias said, adjusting his spectacles as he looked over the stack of documents I had brought. He wants to take it public. And he says he owns it all. That's the summary, I said, and you have this? He tapped a finger on the yellowed, coffee-stained original founder's agreement. The Origin Pact. Cute name. It was a joke, until it wasn't. Elias hummed. Spent the next 3 hours reading. He didn't speak, he just turned pages. The only sound in the room was the ticking of a grandfather clock and the rustle of paper. I sat there, hands folded, watching him. This was the surgery. He was diagnosing the patient to see if there was anything worth saving or if we were just going to harvest the organs. Finally, he stopped at page 42. Here, he said, his voice raspy. Clause 14b is good. The IP veto. But have you looked at Clause 19? The cure period? I wrote it, I said. If one party breaches the agreement, they have 30 days to cure the breach after notification. If they don't, the aggrieved party can trigger accelerated vesting or dissolution. Right. But look at the amendment you filed in year 2. The one regarding the patent assignments. I frowned. I remembered that amendment. He had done it to satisfy a paranoid IP lawyer from a potential acquirer who eventually walked away. What about it? It says, Elias reads slowly, that in the event of a material misrepresentation of ownership to third parties, specifically investors or regulatory bodies, the cure period is waived. And he looked up at me, a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. The IP assignment becomes voidable retroactively. I froze. Retroactively? I whispered. I thought it just stopped future transfers. No, Elias smiled, revealing crooked teeth. The way you phrased it shall be deemed void ab initio. It means if he lies about owning it, the legal fiction is that the company never owned the IP. It reverts to the inventors. Plural. My heart hammered against my ribs. I'm listed as co-inventor on all 7 core patents. Exactly. If we can prove he lied to investors, which, based on this S1 draft, is about to do on a federal level, then the company doesn't own its own product. You do, and he does, as individuals, jointly, which means he can't sell the company, because the company is an empty shell. It's a car without an engine. I sat back, the realization washing over me like ice water. It was the nuclear option. If we triggered this, the IPO wouldn't just fail, the company would implode. The stock would be worthless, the employees. One's cheering for pizza. They would lose everything too. I hesitated. The employees, I said, they're innocent in this. Elias looked at me over his glasses. Collateral damage, Mira. Do you want to save them or do you want justice? You can't have both. Not with a cancer this deep. I thought about the pizza party. I thought about the founding advisor memo. I thought about the wink. He built this on my back, I said softly. If he wants to burn me. He burns the house down. Good, Elias said. Now we need to build the trap. We can't just sue him now. He'll settle, offer you a payout, make it go away quietly. You want to hurt him? You let him walk all the way to the edge of the cliff. You let him file that S1. You let him stand in front of the world and claim he's the king. And then we push. The next 2 months were a blur of double lives. By day, I was the submissive founding advisor. I came into the office. I smiled. I signed the meaningless compliance forms Alex sent me. I let him see me defeated. Glad to see you're on board, Mira, he said one morning, stopping by my desk. He was wearing a new suit. Italian. The IPO roadshow kicks off next month. Big times. I'm happy for you, Alex, I said, typing on my keyboard. I wasn't typing work. I was transcribing a time-stamped audio recording of him admitting to the board that he handled the Mira situation. Yeah, well, we'll make sure you're taken care of, he said vaguely. Maybe get you a nice severance package once we go public. You could travel. Eat, pray, love style. That sounds nice, I said. I've always wanted to see Italy. Great food, he grinned, ciao. By night, I was with Elias. We were building the injunction packet. It was a masterpiece of litigation. We compiled every email where I discussed the IP. We compiled the original assignment documents. Compiled the side letter he signed about the optics. We also found something else. A small detail, but a deadly one. The founders' agreement had a renewal clause. Every 5 years it had to be reaffirmed or it auto-renewed. The 5-year mark had passed 6 months ago. Alex hadn't reaffirmed it. He hadn't canceled it. He had ignored it. He thinks it expired. Elias chuckled one night, pouring us both a scotch. He thinks because the initial term was 5 years. He's free and clear. But clause 22, I said, reciting it from memory. Unless explicitly terminated in writing by both parties, this agreement shall automatically renew for successive 5-year terms. He didn't read to the end, Elias said. Hubris is a hell of a drug. We had him. We had him on contract law. We had him on IP law. We had him on securities fraud. But we needed the timing to be perfect. The S1 filing is scheduled for Tuesday. I told Elias. He's doing the ringing of the bell ceremony. Well, the metaphorical one. The roadshow kickoff event is at the Ritz-Carlton. All the institutional investors will be there. Is he speaking? Yes, he's doing the keynote, the sole visionary. Elias nodded. That's the moment, when he publicly claims ownership. That's the trigger event for the misrepresentation clause. So we interrupt the wedding, I said. No, Elias smiled. You object when the priest asks if anyone knows a reason why these two should not be wed. And we bring receipts. I went home that night and stared at the ceiling. I felt a strange calm. The panic was gone. The hurt was gone. There was only the cold, mechanical ticking of the clock. The trap was set. The bait was laid and the rat was hungry. The IPO hype machine is a loud, vulgar beast. It eats truth and defecates money. In the weeks leading up to the filing, the office transformed into a cult of personality. Giant posters of Alex's face appeared in the lobby. Quotes from his visionary blog posts were stenciled onto the glass walls of the conference rooms. Innovation is the refusal to accept the status quo. Alex, I wanted to vomit. Innovation? His biggest innovation was figuring out how to expense a private jet as research. The company website was scrubbed. My bio page, which had already been buried 3 clicks deep, was deleted entirely. Our story page was rewritten. It now described a heroic journey of a solitary genius toiling in a garage, my garage, to change the world. Alex, I noticed the website update, I said during a passing moment in the break room. Oh, yeah, he said, not breaking stride. Marketing thought it was cleaner. A single narrative cuts through the noise. You get it. I get it, I said. Then came the Wired article. The headline, The Last True Founder. The article described Alex as the Steve Jobs of enterprise SaaS. It mentioned early contributors who had fallen away as the vision crystallized. I was an early contributor. I was the moss he scraped off his shoe. He started promising equity like it was confetti. He held town halls where he told the new VPs that the IPO would make them all millionaires. Bought loyalty with money he didn't have yet. We're going to be the biggest listing of the year, he shouted. Amidst the circus, I was given one final task. The compliance officer, a nervous woman named Sarah who was terrified of Alex, asked me to review the executive integrity disclosures for the S1. Alex is too busy to read the fine print, Sarah apologized. He said you could handle the boilerplate. Happy to help, I said. I took the document. It was standard stuff, confirming no prior felonies, no conflicts of interest. But there was a section on material adverse events. I added a single sentence to the disclosure addendum. It was buried in paragraph 40, subsection C. The company acknowledges that any pending disputes regarding intellectual property ownership or founder equity standing at the time of filing constitute a material barrier to public listing. It was a standard clause, actually. But by having Alex sign off on the package that contained this clause, I was getting him to legally acknowledge that an ownership dispute would stop the IPO. I sent the packet to Alex via DocuSign. Subject, final compliance sign-off, urgent body, just the standard disclosures, Alex. Need your signature to clear the S1 filing for Tuesday. Mira, he signed it in 3 minutes. He didn't read it. He saw standard and urgent and clicked the button. Ping. Notification, document completed. I downloaded the signed copy. I saved it to 3 different hard drives. That afternoon, I walked by the sales floor. The bros were high-fiving. They had a countdown clock on the wall, days to IPO 04. They were picking out colors for their Lamborghinis. I felt a pang of pity for them. They believed the myth. They didn't know that they were passengers on the Titanic, and the captain had just sold the lifeboats to pay for a better uniform. I ran into Brad, the CFO, by the elevator. Exciting times, Mira. He beamed. You must be proud, even with the step back, it's still your baby in a way. It is, I said. It's very much my baby. And you know how mothers are. They're very protective. Right, he laughed, checking his watch. Hey, are you coming to the kickoff at the Ritz on Tuesday? Alex wasn't sure if you'd want to come, that it might be boring for you. Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world, I said. I love a good show. Great, I'll make sure you're on the list. Maybe in the back row, less glare from the stage lights. The back row is perfect, I said. I like to see the whole room. I went back to my desk. I had one more call to make. I dialed the number of the one person Alex was truly afraid of, not a lawyer, an investor, the original investor. Marcus. He had been the lead on our Series A. It was the one Alex had tried to hide me from with the optics lie. But Marcus was smart. He had always asked me tough questions during board meetings, questions Alex couldn't answer. Mira, Marcus answered on the second ring. To what do I owe the pleasure? I assume you're calling to celebrate the upcoming liquidity event? Not exactly, Marcus, I said. I'm calling to give you a heads up. As a courtesy. Because you were the only one who treated me like a human being. Heads up about what? His voice sharpened instantly. Do not buy the IPO allocation, Marcus, and if you have friends in the institutional round, tell them to ask about the IP assignment chain. Silence, long, heavy silence. Mira, Marcus said slowly. Are you telling me there's a defect in the asset? I'm telling you there's no asset. Alex is selling a ghost. If this is true, that's fraud. I know, I said. See you on Tuesday. I hung up. The machine was humming. The gears were turning. The countdown clock on the wall ticked down. Days to IPO 03. Alex was in his office, practicing his speech in the mirror. I could see him through the glass. He looked like a king. I looked at my reflection in my monitor. I looked like an executioner. The day before the roadshow kickoff, the office was frantic. People were running around with headsets, caterers were bringing in trays of appetizers for pre-parties. The air conditioner was struggling to keep up with the body heat of 200 anxious millionaires in waiting. I found Alex on the balcony. He was smoking a cigarette, something he only did when he was terrified or triumphant. Judging by the manic tapping of his foot, it was a mix of both. You don't smoke, I said, stepping out into the smoggy afternoon. Old habits, he exhaled, the smoke whisking away into the city skyline. He didn't look at me. Tomorrow's the big day. Mira, the culmination of everything. Is it? I leaned against the railing. We were 6 floors up. The cars below looked like toys. Alex, are you sure about the filing? The S1 is everything. Accurate? He finally looked at me, annoyance flickering in his eyes. Jesus, Mira, not now. Legal has reviewed it. Compliance has reviewed it. You reviewed the disclosures. Why are you trying to kill my vibe? I'm not trying to kill your vibe. I'm asking if you're sure you want to claim 100% ownership. You know that's not true. He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his Italian loafer. It is true in every way that matters. I built this brand. I raised the capital. I led the team. You were helpful in the beginning, but you're an advisor now. You have your shares. You'll get rich. Why do you care about the title? It's not about the title. It's about the law. If you file that document tomorrow, you are committing perjury and fraud. I'm giving you a chance, Alex. Amend the filing. List me as a co-founder. Acknowledge the IP split. We can still do the IPO, but we do it honestly. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. He smelled of mints and stale tobacco. Listen to me closely. The narrative is set. The train has left the station. If you try to derail this now because of your ego, I will bury you. I will sue you for breach of fiduciary duty. I will paint you as a hysterical, jealous ex who couldn't handle the pressure. No one will hire you in this town again. Do you understand? I understand, I said softly. Good, now go home, get some rest, buy a new dress for tomorrow, try to look happy. He turned and walked back inside, sliding the glass door shut. He didn't look back. I stood there for a moment, watching the traffic. He had made his choice. He had chosen the lie. I pulled out my phone. I had a text from Marcus. Marcus, we need to talk now. Meet me at the Battery. The Battery was a private club for the tech elite. Dark wood, leather chairs, and enough net worth in one room to buy a small country. I met Marcus in a corner booth. He was drinking a martini. He didn't look happy. I made some calls, Marcus said, skipping the pleasantries. I pulled the patent filings from the USPTO database. Your name is on every single one. First position, yes, I said, and I looked at the cap table Alex sent to the syndicate. Your name is nowhere near the voting block. No, Marcus took a sip of his drink. He looked at me with a mixture of respect and fear. If you blow this up tomorrow, Mira, everyone loses. My firm loses. The employees lose. The market takes a hit. If I don't blow it up, I said, I lose. I lose my life's work. I lose my integrity. You lose too, Marcus. Because when the SEC finds out, and they will, they'll claw back every cent and you'll be named in the class action lawsuit for lack of due diligence. Marcus flinched. He knew I was right. What do you want? He asked. I don't want money, I said. I want the truth. I want the record corrected. And I want my company back. Your company? It was never his, I said. He was just the front end. I'm the back end. Marcus stared at me for a long time, and he nodded slowly. The institutional buyers, the guys from Goldman, from Sequoia, they're going to be in the front row tomorrow. They ask questions during the Q&A. I know, if a material question regarding ownership is raised, and the CEO cannot answer it satisfactorily, the bankers will freeze the offering. Immediately. That's the plan, Marcus sighed. He pulled out his phone and typed a message. I'm not going to stop you. In fact, I might have a question of my own. He showed me his screen. It was a draft email to the other syndicate leads. Subject, urgent due diligence inquiry IP chain of title. Thank you, Marcus, I said. Don't thank me, he grunted. I'm just saving my own ass. You're terrifying, you know that? I'm just a lawyer, I smiled. We're only terrifying when you didn't read the contract. I left the club and walked home. The city was lighting up. The Salesforce Tower loomed over the skyline, a giant glowing phallus of tech dominance. I went to my apartment. I laid out my outfit for tomorrow. A sharp, charcoal gray suit, not a dress, a suit, armor. I called Elias. Is the packet ready? Printed, bound, and notarized, Elias croaked. I have 5 copies. One for the SEC, one for the underwriters, one for Alex, one for you, and one for the press. Bring them to the Ritz at 8 a.m. I'll be there, wearing my funeral tie. It's not a funeral, Elias, I said, looking at the city lights. It's an exorcism. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room watching the sun rise over the bay. The sky turned from black to bruised purple to blood orange. It was IPO day. The day Alex became a king, or the day the castle fell. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom smelled of roasted coffee beans and fear. It was 8:30 a.m. The room was packed with the suits. Investment bankers in bespoke navy wool, VCs in Patagonia vests, and industry analysts tapping furiously on iPads. At the front of the room, a massive screen displayed the company logo, a stylized A for Alex, presumably, though he claimed it stood for Apex. The word Vision was projected in bold, sans serif font. I stood near the back by the coffee station. I was wearing my charcoal suit. My hair was pulled back in a tight, severe bun. I looked like I was there to audit the catering, not destroy the host. Elias was next to me. He looked out of place, like a 19th century undertaker who had wandered into a TED talk. He had a battered leather briefcase at his feet. The vultures are circling, Elias murmured, watching a group of Goldman Sachs bankers huddle in the corner. They were whispering, looking at their phones. Marcus sent the email, I said. Good, look at them. They're nervous. Bankers hate surprises. I scanned the room for Alex. He was near the stage, surrounded by his sycophants, Brad the CFO, Chloe the assistant, and a team of PR handlers. He looked manic. His eyes were bright, his gestures too large. He was laughing, but the sound was brittle. He spotted me. For a second, his mask slipped. He looked annoyed, maybe even a little scared. He gave me a curt nod, then turned his back to high-five a tech blogger. I checked my phone. 8:45 a.m. The presentation was scheduled for 9 a.m. I saw a ripple move through the crowd. A senior partner from one of the underwriting banks, a man with silver hair and a face like a hawk, checked his phone, frowned, and walked over to Brad. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Brad's face drain of color. He shook his head vigorously. He pointed at Alex. The banker looked skeptical. The whisper campaign is working, Elias noted. They're asking about the IP. It's just a rumor right now, I said. They need proof. They'll get it. I watched Brad scurry over to Alex. He whispered something in Alex's ear. Alex's head snapped up. He looked scanning the room, his eyes wild. He found me again. He started walking towards me. Steady, Elias whispered. Alex pushed through the crowd. He didn't look like a visionary anymore. He looked like a cornered animal. What did you do? He hissed when he got close enough. He kept his voice low, a rictus of a smile on his face for the benefit of the onlookers. What did you tell them? I didn't tell them anything, Alex. I'm just here for the show. Brad says the underwriters are asking about a cloud on title, about the patents. Did you call them? I don't have their numbers, Alex. You cut me out of those email threads, remember? Don't play games with me if you sabotage this. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice boomed over the PA system. Please take your seats. Presentation will begin in 5 minutes. Alex glared at me. We are going to talk after this, and you are going to sign a retraction, or so help me God. Break a leg, Alex, I said. He spun around and marched back to the stage. He adjusted his jacket, ran a hand through his hair, and put the mask back on. The smile returned, the confidence rebooted. He was a performer, and this was his final act. I took a seat in the back row, just as I had promised. Elias sat next to me. He placed the red folder on the table in front of him. The lights dimmed. The music swelled, some uplifting, generic electronic track that sounded like the future. The screen faded to black, then played a slickly produced video. It showed Alex walking on a beach, Alex coding, fake typing in a dark room, Alex looking thoughtfully at a whiteboard. Voiceover, one man, one vision, one future. I felt a wave of nausea. It was so blatant, so erased. The video ended. The lights came up. Please welcome, the announcer said, the founder and CEO. Alex, applause. It was polite, but not raucous. The tension in the room was palpable. The bankers were still checking their phones. Alex bounded onto the stage. He grabbed the microphone. Thank you. Wow, what a journey. From a garage in San Jose to the Ritz-Carlton. They said it couldn't be done. They said a single founder couldn't scale a platform this complex. But here we are. He paused for applause. He got silence. He faltered slightly. Right, so let's talk numbers. He clicked the clicker. A slide appeared, revenue growth. He started his pitch. He was good. I had to give him that. He was charming, articulate, passionate. If you didn't know he was a liar, you'd buy stock right now, but I knew. And the silver-haired banker in the front row knew something was wrong. Alex reached slide 10. Intellectual property and moat. Our platform is defended by a fortress of proprietary algorithms, Alex said, his voice rising. We own the stack. Top to bottom, no dependencies, no liabilities, just pure owned innovation. That was the line. The silver-haired banker raised his hand. It wasn't a Q and a session yet. You don't interrupt the pitch. Alex froze. We'll do Q and at the end, Peter. This is a fundamental question, Alex, Peter said, standing up. The room went deathly silent. Received an inquiry this morning regarding the assignment chain of the core patents 1 through 7. Can you confirm on the record that you are the sole assignee? Alex laughed. It was a terrible sound, of course. It's a clerical thing. I'm the founder. The company owns the IP. Is there a co-inventor? Peter asked. Mira last name. Alex gripped the podium. His knuckles were white. She was a contractor. Early days, she has no claim. That's not what the USPTO database says, Peter said, and that's not what your founder's agreement says. Alex looked at the back of the room. He looked at me. I stood up. I didn't shout. I didn't throw a drink. I just stood up, smoothed my suit jacket, and picked up the red folder. Actually, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom, I'm not a contractor. I'm the architect. And then I started walking toward the stage. The walk from the back of the ballroom to the stage felt like it took an hour. It probably took 30 seconds. The only sound was the clicking of my heels on the parquet floor. Every head turned. 200 people watching the ghost materialize. Alex looked like he was having a stroke. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. He looked at security, but they didn't move. You don't tackle a woman in a $2,000 suit holding a legal file. You assume she belongs there. I stopped 10 feet from the stage, right in front of the row of bankers. Elias was a step behind me like my shadow. Mira, Alex croaked into the microphone. Feedback whined, sit down, we can discuss this later. We're discussing it now, Alex, I said. I didn't need a microphone because you're about to ask these people for $200 million based on a lie. I turned to Peter, the silver-haired banker. I handed him the red folder. Inside, I said, you will find the original founder's agreement, signed 6 years ago. You will find the IP veto clause, specifically clause 14B, and you will find the amendment regarding material misrepresentation. Peter opened the folder. He put on his reading glasses. The other bankers leaned in like seagulls spotting a French fry. What is this? Alex shouted, trying to regain control. This is blackmail. She's a disgruntled ex-girlfriend. She's trying to sabotage the company. Clause 14B. Peter read aloud, his voice dry and devoid of emotion. The silent partner retains veto power over the transfer of core intellectual property assets. He looked up at Alex. Did you disclose this restriction in the S1? It's invalid, Alex yelled. The agreement expired. It was a 5-year term. Clause 22, Elias spoke up for the first time. His voice was gravel. Automatic renewal unless terminated in writing. Did you terminate it in writing? Mr. CEO, Alex went pale. I thought. He didn't, I said, so the agreement is active, which means I own 49% of the company, and I have veto power over this IPO. The room erupted. Murmurs turned into shouts. Analysts were furiously typing. This was a disaster. This was the Fire Festival of Finance. But it gets better, I said, raising my voice slightly to cut through the noise. Because Alex just stood on the stage and claimed sole ownership to a room of investors, he triggered the misrepresentation amendment. Peter flipped to the back of the folder. He read the clause, his eyes widened. The IP reverts, Peter whispered. Void ab initio. He looked at the other bankers. He closed the folder. We're out, Peter said. What? Alex dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a deafening thud. Goldman is withdrawing from the syndicate, Peter said, standing up. Cannot underwrite an offering where the underlying assets are in dispute. This IPO is dead. You can't do that, Alex screamed. He jumped off the stage. He looked manic, sweaty, terrifying. I built this. I am the brand. You're a liability, Peter said coldly. Alex turned to me. He looked like he wanted to hit me. He looked like he wanted to cry. Why? He whispered. Why would you burn it all down? You lose too, Mira. Your stock is worthless now. You just cost yourself $50 million. The room fell silent again, waiting for my answer. I didn't do it for the money, Alex, I said. I looked him dead in the eye. I did it because you forgot the first rule of engineering. What? He spat. You never build on a cracked foundation. I turned to Elias. Serve him. Elias reached into his battered briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. He handed it to Alex. You are hereby served with a cease and desist regarding the use of Mira's patented technology, Elias said, and a lawsuit for breach of contract, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Alex held the envelope like it was radioactive. The investors were already leaving. The suits were checking the exits, calling their offices, trying to distance themselves from the blast radius. The screen behind Alex still flashed, vision. It looked like a joke now. I looked at Brad. The CFO, he was slumped in his chair, head in his hands. I looked at the sales bros in the back. They weren't high-fiving anymore. They looked terrified. I'm sorry, I said to the room, though I was mostly speaking to the employees. But he stole the company. I'm just taking it back. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back at Alex. I didn't need to see him crumble. I heard it. I heard the shouting, the accusations, sound of $1 billion valuation evaporating into thin air. I walked out of the ballroom, through the lobby, and out onto the street. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day in San Francisco. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the Wall Street Journal. Breaking, tech unicorn IPO halted amidst founder fraud allegations. I smiled. I hailed a cab. Where to? The driver asked. The nearest pizza place, I said. I'm starving. The fallout was radioactive. The company didn't survive the week. Once the IPO was pulled and the fraud allegations hit the press, the VCs triggered their liquidation preferences. They stripped the carcass of whatever cash was left to recoup their investments. Alex was fired by the board 3 days later. They tried to save face, blaming it all on a rogue CEO. But the damage was done. The brand was toxic. The SEC investigation took 6 months. Alex settled. He was banned from serving as an officer of a public company for 10 years and had to pay a massive fine. He lost the house in the hills. He lost the Tesla. Last I heard, he was trying to launch a crypto scam in Dubai. He's shilling alpha male mindset courses on TikTok now. As for me, I didn't get the $50 million. The stock is worth zero. The paper wealth evaporated. But I got the IP. Because the misrepresentation clause triggered the reversion. I legally own the core code, all of it. The engine that ran the billion-dollar machine is sitting on a hard drive in my safe. I could sell it. Google has called. Microsoft has called. They offered me enough money to buy an island. I haven't sold it yet. I started a new company. It's small. Just me and 3 engineers, the 2 guys from the coffee machine who Alex mocked, and Sarah from compliance, who is actually a brilliant ops manager. We work out of a small office in Oakland. No glass walls. No Vibes VP, no magazine covers. We're rebuilding the platform, but we're doing it right this time. We're calling it Architect, and the founder's agreement, it's 1 page. It says, we tell the truth, we share the credit, and nobody eats pizza instead of a bonus. Sometimes, late at night, I check Alex's Instagram. He looks tired. The filter can't hide the bags under his eyes. Posts videos of himself in a rented Lamborghini, talking about how haters and snakes tried to bring him down, but he's rising like a phoenix. He has 500 views. I drink my wine, a very expensive Cabernet that I bought with the settlement money from the defamation suit I won against him, and I watch. He thinks he was the victim. He thinks he was a tragic hero brought down by a bitter ex. He'll never understand that he wasn't brought down by emotion. He was brought down by syntax. He was brought down by a comma he didn't read and a clause he didn't respect. A lot of people ask me if it was worth it, destroying a unicorn, losing the fortune, burning the village to kill the monster. I think about the founding advisor memo. I think about the pizza party. I think about the wink. I look around my small, quiet office. I own the lights, I own the chairs, I own the code. And most importantly, I own my name. Yeah, it was worth it. So, to all the soul architects out there, standing on stages, taking credit for work you didn't do, erasing the people who built your pedestal, a word of advice, check your paperwork. Because the ghost in the machine might just be holding the kill switch.